Alright, this folder here I've named May 5th underscore 2016. Inside I have a single landing page that I've named Local Storage Learning Index.html. You generally call your landing page index.html, but I like to give it more of a detail so that I remember what I was working on. And inside this folder called Box, I just have a few different types of images. I have colorstar.bitmap, colorstar.ico, colorstar.ping, and then I've got a small version, tiny colorstar.ping. And I have two web pages. I have one called blanknotes.html and webpage template.html. So I'm going to highlight these two web pages, if I can highlight them. Right click and edit with Notepad. I'm going to go over those two pages, and if I go outside a box here, my main landing page, my local storage learning index.html, I also have that opened in Notepad++ right there. So I'm going to go over those three web pages, my landing page or home page, and two extra pages that I'm going to pull in to the landing page. Let's go over blanknotes.html. It's pretty short. So I've selected the tab here. I'm going to hit Run, Launch in Firefox. I'll wait for that browser to open, and I've got these side by side. On the left, again, it's my blanknotes.html web page opened in Notepad++, and on the right side, what the web page looks like open in a browser. All it says is notes, but it's more than just saying the word notes, because as you can see, you can type on this web page. You can type on the whole web page, because the web page is nothing more than one element called a text area. So if we look at the code for this, you've got your HTML opening tag and your head tags. And inside the head, we've only got a style. And for the body, I've styled it with a margin 0 pixels, padding 0 pixels, and background color of beige. Then for our text area tag, I have these styles: background color beige, resize none, so the user can't grab a little, there's like an ellipses when you have a resize that the user can take and make the square of the text area smaller or larger, but I don't want them to have that ability. So resize is set to none, height is 100%, width is 100%, the padding is 5 pixels, so that the text doesn't bump all the way up to the very edge of the window of the page. Font size is 25 pixels. I wanted it to be a little larger than usual. And I have border none, because if you don't say border none, you could see an ever so slight black line all the way around this, and I wanted the interface to be as clean as possible. So there's the end of the style and the end of the head. Here's the beginning body tag, and there's the ending body tag. Only thing we got in there is text area tags. And the reason that you see notes as soon as I open this in the web browser is because I put the word notes in there. Now, when you want to be able to type on the outside of a web page for notes, you don't give it a disabled. But if you want to save your notes, what you have to do is you take all your notes in that page, you highlight it, and you right click it and you copy it, and then you come in here, you physically come in the source code, and you right click it and paste it. Okay, once you have pasted all your notes in your text area, then you go in here in the opening text area tag right after the word text area but before the greater than symbol, and type the word disabled. What happens now when you save this and then refresh the page is that you can see how it went from black to like a light gray. All of these notes, no matter if you refresh the page and if you leave the page and if you go back and run it again, it's all in the source code, so you don't lose it. If you don't copy this into your text area in the source code, when you refresh the page or close it and come back, it's all going to be blank again, and the only thing you're going to see is the word notes. Not a big deal. You might just want this notes page for typing practice, and it doesn't matter if you save it or not. But if you do want to save it, remember what I said, copy and paste it and stick it right in here. Now, I don't need to save this right now, so I'm going to remove the word disabled and remove all that other stuff and save it. You save it here. Now it's back to the black color, and now you can type in it. Once you disable this by putting disabled here, you can no longer type on top of the page like that. It saves your notes and makes it not possible to save this stuff. Okay, so then there's the end of the body and the end of the HTML. So that's all you got for blank notes.html. Get out of there. The other page that I'm going to create to do notes, I've named Webpage template.html. So let's run that one in Firefox. This one is very similar. It's got the same style, but instead of just having the word notes in that text area, I have basically the template of starting a web page. You're going to have an opening HTML tag and a closing HTML tag that encases everything. You're going to have a head tag and an ending head tag and all the goodies that you might possibly want to put inside of a head tag, like your title, your CSS styles, and your JavaScripts, functions. All that stuff resides inside your head tag. You can also make external scripts, but before you make external scripts, sometimes it's nice to have it right here so that you're only looking up and down one page instead of bouncing back and forth to multiple tabs. And then of course you've got your body tags in which you're going to put all your elements. So with this note page right here, I don't have to type out HTML every time and head every time and title every time. I can go straight to the particular place and then tab down, and then this is my new title, So then when I copy all of this and paste it into Notepad and save it as an HTML file, this is my new title will show up in the browser tab, and so on and so forth. And these will be my new, styles. Like let's say I wanted body style in the in the double curly braces. I might say for the body I might want the background color to be green. Well, probably not, but I'm just saying that's where your styles would go in there. And then your script is where you might do a function. Function hi. And then you might, in those curly braces, you might say alert. That's supposed to give you an alert box unless your browser's set up to not accept pop-ups. Alert, hi there. Or any function that you create would go in the script. Okay, and basically HTML head styles are exactly the same. I've got the same body styles. I've got the exact same text area styles. I can change that if I want to. Head, body, here's the text area. And this, like I said, the only difference in this text area, instead of just having the word notes right here, I've got my little tags. My HTML tags, my head tags, my title, my style, my script, which again is in my head tags, my body. I have no elements in the body yet. End of HTML, end of text area. End of body, end of HTML. Alright, so that's the web page template.html that you see right here that I already just explained. Now this right here is my local storage learning index.html. This is my home page. Let me run that in Firefox, and this is your home page, your landing page, the main program itself. I'm going to move this way over because you need a little width to see this. I have a couple things going on here. Let me minimize this for a second. I start off with a navigation area over here to the left. And I have, when it's small, I have an area, an iframe here that's going to open up either a YouTube page or another website, or maybe another page that I create myself. That's going to be my basic learning spot. And then down here in the green area is going to be a place for me to take notes. So those pages that I just showed you, whether it's the blank.html that just has the word notes, or the webpage template.html that says HTML head and so on and so forth all the way to the end, depending on what my navigation opens up, you'll see either notes or the web page template open up here, and either a website or a YouTube video here. Another thing that I've done is watch how my CSS styles change as this goes wider. If you're using a device that's maybe like a tablet, then you're going to see the video up here and your place to take notes down here. If you open up this up full screen, it actually makes my video or web page area, my learning area, on the left hand side. They're side by side, and my green notes area to the left of that. So I'll show you how I did that with my CSS, with my style actually. As I pull this open, and I've done another video where I did the same thing before. You see how it changed right before your eyes? And what I'm trying to do is give myself a work area. It's extra work. This would be no different than if I were to open a web page and then minimize the screen and then open up Notepad or Notepad++ and then go over here and right click it and say show windows side by side. This is really not a whole lot different than that, except that the dividers are already in place. The only bad thing between this, as opposed to using Notepad or Notepad++ for my notes area, is that after I do my notes in here, I have to copy and paste them into the source. Whereas if I just open up my browser with the YouTube video or the web page and just put those screens side by side, then if I put it in Notepad or Notepad++, I don't have to copy and paste it and hope I don't lose it in the process. So this is basically for the purpose of practice and I don't know, give me an interface with multiple windows on one page by using a browser. Well, I'm going to click this first one right here, and it says you can't see the entire title because the width of my navigation area is pretty narrow. I wanted as much width as possible for my notes and my learning areas. So what I did was I used a title for each of these list items, and if you hover over the list item, you see that tooltip pop up. That gives us the entire title for that navigation area. Parasitology is our passion, 100 years research in parasitology at Bayer. Okay, so that's basically giving you the long version of what this navigation is. And if I go down to the second one and hover, it says key value web storage pairs, my own YouTube video. So I click on the first one and you'll see that just notes comes up, and I already showed you that blank page. And then right here is that web page that I told you about, and it talks about companion vector-borne diseases. And since my interest is in web page design, I actually look at how other companies create their own web pages. You see, as you hover over their navigation area here, they get sub navigations that pop up as they hover. So that's a nice feature. I also look at how they use colors, what colors they use together to look kind of complementary. Like here's more hover events. When you hover over these images, you see that they're links. You get that highlight of a link area. And if you click on it, it opens up a larger picture. So yeah, I go to different websites, one, for the particular information that they're sharing, and two, to scope out how they've done their own web page so that I can get ideas. If you go to that page, way over to the right, you've got this link called zoonosis. And if you click on it, what it tells you is zoonosis describes an infectious disease that affects humans as well as animals and which can be transmitted between the different species. According to the WHO, a zoonosis is defined as any disease or infection that is naturally transmissible from vertebrate animals to humans. And different kinds of pathogens can cause zoonosis involving bacteria, viruses, parasite, fungi, and other biological units with zoonotic potential, and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting to go over because everybody assumes that only animals, plants, fish, birds have these issues, but no, people do too. So it's kind of good now that the weather's breaking. If you have pets, any kind of pets, it's kind of good to realize what kind of things your pets can pick up and what they can actually transmit to you or your children. So if you've got extra time, you might want to find this website and gloss over this information. And the way you can find this website is you can Google companion vector-borne diseases, and this webpage will pop up for you. Okay, so I have my little two iframes here, this one with the green border and this one with the blue, and I can go right in here in my text area, and I can go down a couple spaces, and I can just start typing, whatever notes I want to type. Say if I was doing a report on something, I might come up with 5 or 10 different resources where on the right I read what I want and I take what I want and I put my notes in here. You could also, if I'm not mistaken, you can copy. I guess it might depend on how the website's set up. You might not be able to copy from certain websites, but you can copy and paste little snippets that you want and put it here. And then you could read and you could pick up another snippet that you want. Like I said, this would be good if you're trying to accumulate information for a report for school or whatever. Now then again, like I said, if you hit refresh, you're going to be upset because everything's going to disappear. And if you took a lot of time to create your notes, you might not be very happy. So if you don't really want to chance it with this, you might just go on ahead and open up your notepad and just slide this right over top of this area here. And you could still click all your navigation to your sources, but you could do the same thing if you want to, take. And of course, when you're doing a research paper, you can't use other people's words verbatim, but in the beginning part, you can take your notes down and then reword it as you go along. So if you save it here in Notepad, you know that this is not going to disappear unless you close out of Notepad and don't save it. Okay, so that was my one idea here. And if I go to this one, this opens up my webpage template, and this is actually, I think, the last video I did before this one. Now, I went to my YouTube channel and I wanted to save this or share it. You click on the share button and then you click on embed, and then the only part in that whole little line of code that they give you that you want to extract is the source. So the src equals and whatever's in the parentheses. I mean the quotes or double quotes or double quotes. I don't remember if it was single or double quotes. That's all you need to extract. Here, what you're extracting is the entire address bar of whatever the website that you want to pop in here is. Like, let's say that was the address bar. You would copy and paste it into the code. I haven't showed you yet, but that would be your source if it's a website. And if it's a video from YouTube, again, go to share and then embed and then only highlight and copy the code that's in source section. So I click my video here and I get to actually see what my video looks like if a total stranger were to look at it, and I need to see that it's legible. I'm going to put that on pause. I need to see that it's legible because If it's not legible, if it's blurry, then creating these videos is useless for my own recovering of the information and for anybody else who wants to learn anything. So this is one way that I can track if my videos are coming out legibly or not. So I can put my video in here, and you see right here I've got 3 columns. I've got my Notepad++ column, and then I'm showing 2 different columns here, one Google Chrome and the other Firefox. If I wanted my code to be larger for the purpose of sharing code and learning for my own benefit, then I would not necessarily want to use 3 different columns or 3 different windows. I might just want to do a video of just the code only and maybe tab back and forth showing the results, or maybe just have the code on one side and one browser example so that this can be a little bit larger. Okay, and again, if I were to watch this, the way I would do it, the way I do it when I watch anybody else's videos, is I would play it, and I see all this, and I listen. But if they take it all the way to the top, like here's the top. Okay, I push pause. Here's the top when you see the HTML on the head. You know that's the top of the code. So I would actually pause that video. And for this whole screen, instead of trying to type as fast as whoever it is, me included, is talking, I would get my own code in Notepad++ set up in a little part over here, or use something like this tool that I just created. And this says HTML, then it says head, then it says title. So here I would go in the title and I would type what I see, storage practice. Then I go down to style and I go inside of there. The first style I see is for list item. So I would hit LI, go down, curly opening curly brace, go down, list, style, type, colon, circle, semicolon, go down one and close the curly brace. And then the next one would be table, comma, TD, go down and do opening curly brace, border, thick, purple, solid, colon, go down one, Z border, collapse, colon, collapse, semicolon, and then put the next curly brace, and so on and so forth. Then after I copied what I see from top to where they happen to end in the particular video, then I would lift my scroll up and then I would play it. So then I already have it typed, and then I listen to what the author is telling me about it. So I'm reinforcing reading my side and the author's side, making sure I don't have any typos. Because if you're trying to type as fast as the person is reading the code, you're going to find yourself very frustrated and you're not going to be happy at all. So use the pause button when you're learning coding, and try to get to the top of the code whenever the author lets you see the top of the code, and try to just copy it, then listen after the fact. It'll make it a whole lot easier. Okay. So let's get off of this. I just basically showed you what this tool is doing for me. And let's get to the code that actually makes that web page. Okay, so here it is in Notepad++. Again, I'll launch it in Firefox just so I can point to the elements. I shouldn't have shut that. So I want this to be right there. Now you see as the page got more narrow, my note section is on the bottom instead of side by side, and this is what it looks like when I click. There's my CVBD companion vector-borne diseases page. There's my section for the notes, and again if I click this one, you're going to see my last video with again my place for notes. And then since it's so short, there's a scroll bar here that'll allow it to grow as long as I keep taking notes. Okay, let's go ahead with this code. HTML head. Here I've linked with a shortcut icon. So link rel equals shortcut icon. href equals box / tiny color star dot ping. Type equals image / x icon. This allows me to have this little icon that I created in Paint right next to the title in the tab of the browser. After that, I've got title, local storage, online learning. And that's the words that you see in the tab of the browser, local storage, online learning. Now you don't see the whole thing, so when you hover over it, you get a tooltip that lets you see the whole thing. Same way that my navigation area here gives you the whole thing when you hover over it, because I created a tooltip. Now the browser created this tooltip. Firefox created this one, but I'll show you in code how I created this one. Now we are going to talk about the styles for this particular web page you're looking at. Body, margin 0 pixels, padding 0 pixels, and a background color of black. And you can see here where there's really nothing else going on at the time, there's black. The next thing that I'm going to show you are the styles for the ordered list. And an ordered list, really, whether it's an OL or a UL, I still had to do something with the margin left being a negative number. But I guess this probably should have been a UL because I really don't have numbers going on here. An OL, ordered list, generally you use that if you want to see numbers. The first one, the second one, the third one, and so on and so forth. But for whatever purposes, maybe I started off creating an ordered list and then I changed it as far as the code goes. But anyway, OL, I have border thick purple solid, and you cannot see it, but if I change that from purple to maybe pink, maybe you could see it then. Let's see. Yeah, you see those faint lines right here? I don't really care to see that, and I could X or Z out this misspelled border so you don't have to see it. But the reason I give my elements a border with a strange color is because it helps me to maneuver. It helps me to know how much room I have with a certain element and how to place it. If I'm kind of confused of why it's not sitting the way I want it to in a page, then I'll give it a border and then I'll be like, oh, okay, well I need to make that more narrow, or I need to make that wide, or whatever I need to do. So I give it a border, and then if I don't want the border anymore, I just Z it out, and then you can't see it anymore. But my list items that are inside of the ordered list tags are positioned the way I want them to be. I gave the ordered, well, let me go ahead and bring that OL tag back because that shows the part of the web page that I'm talking about right now. I gave this ordered list tag a width of 7%. A percentage so that as my page grows and shrinks, this part will grow and shrink, and this part will grow and shrink. So instead of giving them static pixel lengths, heights and widths, I gave them percentages. So this area right here has a width of 7%. Margin left was strange. I had to give it a negative 35 pixels of margin left. Now margin left, generally with lists, it indents. So it would naturally want these list items to move over or tab over. And I didn't want that. I wanted my list items to be as far to the right of the window as possible. So I had to force it to the right by forcing the left margin a negative number. So negative 35 pixels shoved my list items inside the ordered list tag to the right. I'm sorry, to the left. Okay, text align left, margin top 0 pixels. Again, I wanted it to butt up to the top. Color purple, again, if I didn't move this margin over to the left so far, there probably would have been numbers involved. And I'm thinking that my setting color purple here would have given those numbers the color of purple, because right now obviously we can't see any numbers, so I really don't know what my color purple stood for at that time. When I make pages and I'm working with design, sometimes I'll copy and paste something that I made a long time ago and then just make some changes as I go along for something new that I'm creating. And so a lot of times I'll be like, I don't really remember why I did that, because now I've changed it to something slightly different, and so it may or may not apply. So that could probably be erased. Font size 15 pixels. List style image. This is giving me this cute little starry, colorful star image that I've used up here and here. And I've also used right here to replace the image on my folder. List style image colon Earl, and then in parentheses and single quotes, in my folder called box / tiny color star.ping. So it's the same image, it's the exact same image, it's linking to as the one up here in the tab. And then I've got list style position colon inside. I did that so that this image will be inside of where the list item is instead of hanging out here to the left on the outside. Okay, next, my list item itself. The list items that are inside here, the actual with the blue background that highlights to white when I hover, these are the list items themselves. This purple line that I showed you, it represents the ordered list tag that nests all the list items inside. So for this list item, any list items that I create in here, I have all of this to style it. They have a height of 30 pixels, a font size of 10 pixels. And again, if someone were watching this video and they wanted to recreate what I'm showing, they should hit pause as I'm yakking and type all this out as they see it. And then once they get to the bottom here, they can't see any more code, go on ahead and hit play and see what maybe I had to say about all this yakking. And I do my best to go from top to bottom of code so that if someone wanted to emulate what I'm learning for themselves and then make changes for themselves, they don't miss anything. But it's very difficult to type and listen to people talk at the exact same time. So I'd use the pause button frequently when you look at these videos and type what you see and then run it and see if your page runs the same as mine did. But let me get back to the list item style. Again, height 30 pixels, font size 10 pixels. Overflow is hidden. That keeps the words that don't fit in this small area from cascading or flowing down here outside of that little navigation area that I created. Again, when I hover over this, the entire name pops out in a tooltip, so I don't really care that I can't see it all in this navigation area. So I use overflow hidden. Font family is Arial. Background color is pound 3cc. That gives us this kind of aqua bluish green color, which is funny because in another video I did, I couldn't think of a color that started with A, and aqua would have been perfect for that. Then we have border, 5 pixels of silver outset. And we don't really have silver as what you expect, but it's kind of a grayish color here. That's the border around both of these, and it's called silver. Padding is 10 pixels. I see I have a width of 18% that I actually Z'd out. And that's probably because... Did I put a width? It's probably because it's inside of the ordered list has a width. So the list item is nested inside of the OL. It's obviously with a Z in front of here, it's not reading it, so it's like it's not even there. I have a border radius of 20 pixels. That gives me the nice rounded corners. You can use 10 pixels, you can use 50 pixels, and test out the different roundness and see what you like the best. And then even though you can't see it very well, I'm using box shadow styles, and it kind of shadows the bottom of this a little bit, and each subsequent list item will also have a bit of a shadow. So we have WebKit box shadow, 2 pixels, 0 pixels, 30 pixels, and 15 pixels. Then there's an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, 0.75. Usually if I get a WebKit box shadow style set that I like, a lot of times I'll just take that whole thing right here and just copy it and paste it in another example. I might tool around with these different numbers just to see how the shadows look differently, but if I'm not trying to play around too much with the box shadows, I just copy and paste this whole thing, because you got them in here. How many times you got this statement here? This is a statement. This is a statement by itself. This is a statement by itself, and this is a statement by itself, and they're targeted toward different browsers, if I'm not mistaken. So you've got WebKit box shadow, Moz box shadow, and box shadow, and each of them have the same numbers involved: 2 pixels, 0 pixels, 30 pixels, 15 pixels, RGBA 0.75. Same thing here. The only thing that's different is this part. This part's WebKit box shadow, this is Moz box shadow, and this is just box shadow. Okay, then when we go to, I've got an LI hover. That's my hover of my list item. See, I hover, and you see we get a different color, different background color. So as I hover over the list item, I've got a background color of white and a color of black. All right. Then I have a link, which means your link. If you click on this underlined link, and it'll take you somewhere, it actually opens up these things, or if, it's a link. The default color I have for the regular link by itself and the visited link, I gave them a color of black because different browsers may have different settings on what a link is before you click it and after you click it, and I want to override what the browser wants. If the browser wants the link to be blue and then when you click on it it turns purple, or whatever the case may be, I don't want those extra colors because I'm using bright colors for other things, like for these icons and such. So I don't want my words changing unless they need to. So I've defaulted them to override to a black. I have something that I created here, a B tag, and I gave it a font weight of bolder and a color of black. So I'm sure somewhere in the body of the code I must have used a tag that I named it as B. Then I've got an ID called notes div. Now, the rounded corners here that you see, that's a border for an iframe. But then you see behind that and a little bit around that with straight corners, that's an actual div tag. So I've got an iframe tags inside of a div tag, and for the notes div, which is down here, you see the notes and then you see this other darker green on the outside. This is the style set for that. The position is fixed. The top is 0 pix. The left is 8%, because remember I think I set these to 7%. Let me see again. What did I set the list? No, it was the order list. The width for the ordered list is 7%. So to come out just a little bit from that, accounting for borders and stuff, I changed that to left of 8%. So that as this window opens and closes, as this gets wider and or more narrow, this will be like cushioned properly. Border thick green solid, background color green, width of 30%, and height of 98%. Okay, I have to apologize because this set of styles is when these are side by side like that. I thought that was confusing me. This is when I've got a wider page, and I'll show you how further down here I have a special way to set my styles depending on how wide the page is. But this is for this when it's wider, and this green notes section top is 0 pixels. See, now it makes more sense because it was down here before and it just didn't make any sense. The top is set up all the way to the top to 0 pixels. The left 8%. These things right in here are in an ordered list of 7%. So this is going to butt up against it at 8%. Border thick green solid. Background color green. Width of 30%. So from here to here, my notes area is 30% wide of the page. The height is 98%, so from top to bottom here with a beige background, that's 98% of the page. And text align is center. Alright, so that's the notes div. Now I have a TV div, which is the blue div that this particular iframe is inside of. And it's similar to the notes div. Border is thick blue solid. The background color is blue. The position is fixed. Again, the top is butted up to the top. It's at 0 pixels. This time the left is 39%. So this div starts 39% away from the left side of the page. The width of this section itself is 60% of the width of this whole page. The height again is 98% and the text align is center. We move down to these IDs, ID TV and ID notes. These are the IDs that I gave the iframes themselves, not the divs, but the iframes that are inside. The iframes are what have these rounded corners. You got rounded corners with this green border and rounded corners with this blue border. So for both the ID of TV and the ID of notes, we have these styles, but then we have these styles that are independent. Only TV has this width and only notes has this style. But both styles were initially given to both because I thought I was going to do this with half and half, and when I realized that when this was as big as this, my viewing area for any YouTube videos was very small and I really had a hard time reading any of the text in it. So I made my notes area a lot more narrow. But this particular style for both TV and notes says width 97%. 97% of the div that it's in. And not 97% of the page, 97% of the div it's inside of. Background color of beige, border of 10 pixels, blue ridge. Now, remember that's for TV and notes, but when we get down over here to notes, I change it from blue ridge to green ridge. And this will supersede that they both have the blue ridge in this one. The border radius is 20 pixels, which again gives both of these the rounded corner, and the padding is 0 pixels because I wanted the page to be as full as possible, and I didn't want any padding. So for the iframe that has the ID of TV, I gave it a width of 99%. This right here I called TV because if you're looking at a YouTube video, I'm thinking videos, I'm thinking TV. So I gave this iframe that name of TV. And obviously I gave this iframe the idea of notes because that's basically what I'm using it for, notes. But because this one is wider, I had to set the percentage a little bit different. When they both had 97% of width, this was not filling up as much of its blue div as this was. So I had to make this one a little wider. That's why it had 99% instead of 97%. And if you follow this code and change these numbers, put this at 97%, don't give it its a special 99%, you'll see why I wanted this to fill it up a little bit better. And again, the iframe with the ID of notes has a border of 10 pixels green ridge. So I have superseded, I have made this have a green border instead of both of them having a blue. Now, once you get your styles together, you might not want to have a green and a blue. You might change both of these borders to black, but when you're first structuring your page and you're seeing how percents fill up the page and how it works when you open and close your page, sometimes it's trial and error. So using different colors that belong to different elements and their IDs makes it easier for you to figure out what changes you need to make. You don't have to leave them crazy colors. You could make them more neutral. This right here was the cool thing. This is an @ symbol, @ media, and then in parentheses we have max width 900 pixels. And then everything in these curly braces that start from here all the way to here, which is really all the rest of the style, is changes that we're making to the CSS once the width gets to 900 pixels. Now obviously the monitor that I'm working with now is not square at all. It's quite a rectangle. So when it's opened fully, you see we've got side by side. Well, by the time this window shrinks down to 900 pixels wide, we get the one on top of each other. If I can get it right here. And it's still moving by itself. But anyway, once it hits that 900 pixel mark, these are the new styles for the same elements that I styled up here, but we're making changes so that they fit in the page different. So for our TV div style, which is the blue div that the iframe is sitting inside of, we also have position fixed. Top, this one has the top of 0 pixels. Now this one's riding up here instead of this green one was riding up here. Now the blue one is. It's got a left of 8% because now it's hugging up against the navigation area. Before, this green one was hugging up against it. Border thick blue solid is the same. Background color of blue is the same. The width is different because now we don't have these guys sitting side by side. We have one on top of the other. So this is going to have a bigger width, which when you tool around with the numbers, you can come up with whatever works for you best depending on your monitor size. My monitor size, I changed my width to 90% and my height to 60%, and then I still have the text align center so that the iframe would would be centered inside the div instead of being too much to the left. And we changed the notes div, which is the green background here. Border thick green solid's the same, background color green's the same, position fixed is the same, but top is 61%. The height of this guy up here is 60%, so we want the percent away from the top of the page to be just a little bit bigger. So I tried it at 61%. I tried it at 60%, but then there was a little bit of an overhang here that I didn't want. So I added a percent and it moved it back a little bit. And we have left 8% because if I add 10 or 20 more navigation buttons over, well, they're not buttons, they're list items, but if I fill all this whole side up here, then I don't want this going over to the left too much. So it also has a left of 8%. The width, again, because it's as long or it's as wide as the guy on top of them, is 90%. And the height is 37%. The height here was 60%. So you're thinking 60% plus 40% is 100%. Why didn't I give this a height of 40%? The reason is we've got pixels of border, and then we've got some pixels of this background div that it's sitting inside of. We also have a padding here that I didn't get rid of. I did not get rid of the padding here, but when you opened it up more, there was no tan background here. So I have a padding I need to get rid of. and text align center. So far I've only showed you the TV div and notes div. Now I'm going to get to the actual TV and notes iframes. They both iframes, they're what has the rounded corners, have a width of 93%, because the iframe is inside of the div, a height of 87%. Now, and a padding of 10 pixels. I really don't think I want this padding. I think this is where I can show you if I take the padding out of the iframe itself, you should not see this background color of tan, because here you see it's got a background color of tan. I don't want to see that. I just want to go straight to the video and straight to the text area. So if I take that padding of 0 pixels, padding to 0 pixels, and I refresh, no longer do you see that tan background. Also, what happened, if you notice, we wound up having more border here. You actually see more of the div that is actually behind the iframe. The iframe's inside of the div. You actually see more of that border. So if I want to widen the iframes, I could take the width, instead of it being 93%, let's change that to 95%. And then click refresh. You see how they both got a little wider? And let's say I want to try it even wider, from 95% to 97%, and refresh it. And it takes up even more of the div space. Let's do the same thing for the height. Instead of 87%, let's try 90. Alright, it looked like, I guess it changed a little. Let me try 92 for the height. Again, this is the iframe trying to fill up. It seemed to work for this. The reason it didn't work for this is because the TV has an exclusive height of 90%. I have to change that also there. It's its own. See, now that one moved, but we still have more room here in the blue. I can actually change the TV to 95. Let's check that out. And that fills up even more. I could go 96, but I'll try it. I might be pushing it. If I go too far, it's gonna, pretty soon it'll butt up against the green. But I think that's good enough. I think I'll leave that. Notes has its own extra border, 10 pixels of green ridge. This way they don't both have the blue ridge border. Alright, and then there, this last curly brace is the end of that special at medium max width 900 pixels. So I showed you how to style some elements where if it's super wide, these elements are side by side, and once it hits 900 pixels, instead of these elements being side by side, they'll be one on top of each other. And this is, again, to try to keep whatever video or website or web page information you're looking at as readable as possible. Once you get to a really tiny video, you can't even see it. When you're talking about code, you have no idea what they're talking about because it's too little to see. Okay. That ends the styles, ends the head. Now let's talk about what I have going on in the body. Here's our OL tag for our ordered list, even though we're not seeing any numbers. And if you take it all the way down, there's the ending OL. And here's a div. That's that div I was telling you about with the ID of notes div, with the iframe inside, with the ID of notes, and the name of notes. And then you have div ID TV div. Inside it has an iframe with an ID of TV and a name of TV. Then you have the end of the body and the end of the HTML. So here's the two divs, the one with the blue background, the one with the green background. And let's go back to that ordered list, which is basically every navigation list item that I will put in here as I go along. We only have two. Here's our, no, normally you would think you would see the list item tag first, but because I don't want the user to have to look for the hard to see underlined text to get the link to work, I want them to be able to click way up here at the list item. I want to be able to touch the whole thing. So I have the aref tag, which is the link tag itself, on the outside of the list item. There's a list item tags. So that way you just touch anything, you touch anything inside of the aref and it's still going to work as a link. Aref equals box / blank notes.html. I think that was the very first page that I showed you. Target equals notes. That means that this web page is going to open up in the iframe that has the ID of notes. Then it's got an on-click event. This.style.color equals black is one thing that happens when you click on here. Then window.tv, I have that's the blue iframe. .location.href equals, and this address right here is the web page address for this CVBD website. Return true. Then I have the LI list item that has its own on-click event equal to style.background color equals white. So when you click on here, you get the background color of white. Click on here, background color of white. You refresh the page. Well, actually, yeah, you refresh the page. This is what they start off at. They hover white, and when you click on them, they stay white. The title. The title in our LI is when you hover over the LI, you get the tooltip. So title, parasitology is our passion, 100 years research in parasitology at Bayer. What I had right here was, if I read the article, this was a time for the audio snippet, but I did not read the article. It's very, I mean, it's not an article, it's a whole web page, so I don't need to have that in there. Okay, so that's the tooltip. I mean, that's the title, but it's inside of the LI opening tag, and in between the LI opening tag and the LI closing tag, we actually have the words that you can't see. Parasitology is our research. You cannot see it. You start to see it, but it gets lost because the overflow is hidden. So the text that you don't see is actually hidden. It's kind of like it is hidden inside the button, but it's not a button. It's inside the list item that you can't see. And there's the end of the list item tag and the end of the A tag, which is our link tag. We do the exact same thing again. So you basically take all of this and you copy and paste it. Copy and paste it down here, paste it all right here, and then make the changes that you need to make. In this case, instead of the blank notes.html, that just says notes, this time we're going to open up that other page that I showed you, the web page template.html that's in the box folder. And on click, it's target equals notes, on click equals this.style.color equals black, window.tv.location.href equals, and this is the address to my YouTube video, my embedded, the embed code. It's just the source only, and then return true. Then you've got your list item, on click equals style.background color equals white, and your title, which is your tooltip, equals key value web storage pairs my own YouTube video. That's when I hover over this and it pops up in that little rectangle. And this key value web storage pairs my own YouTube video. It's part of the text you cannot see. End list item, end a link, end ordered list. And again, there's our div ID notes div and our iframe with the ID of notes. And there's our div ID TV div with the iframe inside of an ID of TV, end of body, end of HTML. And all this junk is right here is something that if I want to use it, I've got it. This uses 2 iframes, one for an audio file, one for a web page. This is something I did in another example that I just copied and pasted here. When I used an audio file in a web page, I had a web page, and then instead of this notes area using a text area, it let me play an MP3 file, and it was a lot smaller and it was on top. So it's just another way of incorporating 2 iframes and using your navigation to open 2 different things in 2 different iframes with 1 click. Alright, I don't think there's anything left to say about this, but basically what I can do is if I find good information, tutorials on whatever I'm looking for, whether it's local storage or whatever about web design or JavaScript or whatever programming I'm into, I can embed the YouTube video up here and then watch the video, and like I said, hit pause as often as I need to, and then just type whatever I need to type, copy and paste it, put it in Notepad, run it, see if it runs, see if it works, and that's it.